Welcome to the Side Hustlers Society podcast, the place where you can find out more about the hustles that are best for you. And of course, make more money in the process. Elijah has been in the gig economy and freelance space for over 8 years and has done over 4,000 deliveries on Uber Eats. Has several video editing clients, many properties on Airbnb, runs multiple YouTube channels, and is the author of the best-selling book, The Anatomy of Financial Success. It's his mission to empower people with the tools needed to be successful. Now, welcome your host, the king of the side hustles, Elijah Bilel.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode produced by the Side Hustlers Society. I'm your host, Elijah. We're going to be rocking solo again this episode, and we're going to be focusing in the next few upcoming episodes. It's going to be a big focus on a lot of tech, because in a lot of ways, technology can really help when it comes to lead generation for obvious reasons. But with that being said, I think this show is a necessary first because technology is one of the attributes that's highlighted in the financial personality report. Some people have a talent for it, and some people don't have a talent for it. And based on those dynamics, that'll probably control whether you're going to use it or not. But to be honest, there are pros and cons to using it versus not using it. And I think a show covering the pros and cons of that is actually going to be very beneficial, because a lot of people will just assume it's all about pros. But there is an opportunity cost. A lot of times you choose to use technology in certain instances. And that's what we're going to be focusing on in this show. I'm going to be sharing with you 5 ways that technology can be a big benefit to you. But I'm going to show the flip side where it could be a big detriment to you, because, like I said, there is an opportunity cost. So without going any further, let's go ahead and pull up what the personality report says about technology. Once again, if you're interested in getting the Financial Anatomy Personality Report, just go to the sidehustlersociety.com, click on store, and it'll take you to the place where you can get it. You can also click the link in the description, and you'll be taken to the place where you can get your financial personality report. So let's pull up the report right now. Okay, so it's now on the screen. Let's read. Technology. The ability to use technology to achieve the result you want. In terms of making money, it's the ability to use technology to make money. Someone with a technology score below 3 is not good at utilizing technology to make money, and they usually go out of their way to avoid the scenario entirely. Someone with a technology score of 3 is decent at using technology to make money. They can work with technology if it is needed, but they are fine if it isn't used. And finally, someone with a technology score above 3 has the talent to use technology in general. They have a preference to use technology to make money in some way. We're going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. There we go. And like I said, we're going to be having a lot of shows coming up talking about technology. But I do want y'all to understand that it's kind of like a Spider-Man quote, like with great power comes great responsibility. In this case, I'm hoping you're not going to take over the world or anything like the Spider-Man villains. But you need to realize that if you overuse technology, there's going to be some consequences and you're going to be missing out on some things. So let's start off with the first one we're going to talk about in terms of technology. For an example, we're going to talk about food delivery. What I mean by food delivery, I think at some point most of us have used Uber Eats or DoorDash or Grubhub, or if you live in Texas, Favor before. These are food delivery companies where they'll bring for a fee, you can just press a few buttons on your phone, pay, and they'll bring a restaurant's food of your choice to you, and you can chow down. So let's talk about how that can greatly benefit the hustle. If you are real busy and you really need to finish a task before a certain deadline, or you just really need to finish a task fast, going to stopping what you're doing, going to the restaurant, either eating there or bringing the food back, it's gonna take some time, and then obviously you do still need to eat. So by the time that's all said and done, that could be an hour, maybe 2, and you're just gonna finish that task a lot slower than you would have if you didn't just grab it on a food delivery platform. using myself as an example, y'all know that I have some rental units that are available on Airbnb. But I set all that stuff up myself in terms of putting the furniture together and staging the unit. I didn't outsource that. I personally find it fun, but yeah. So when this was going on, I actually used Uber Eats a lot when I was setting up the unit. Anytime I set up a new unit, I pretty much would just write off that whole day because I wanted to set everything up, set up the furniture, stage the apartment, take the pictures that will be used on the Airbnb and Verbo listing. So the whole day, I would just pretty much stay inside that apartment until it all got done. And each time I got faster, I got to the point to where it really only took me like 4 to 5 hours to stage the whole apartment, put everything together when it used to take a whole day. But regardless, I just wrote off the whole day because I do want to stay in the property at least 1 to 2 days because there's like little things that may pop up that you didn't know that you need to address if you didn't actually stay in there for a day or two. But your guests will be aware that, that's a problem. And then, you may end up getting 4 or 3 stars because there's something that popped up and it's been reoccurring, but you didn't know about it because you didn't stay in the unit. That's kind of going off track a little. Let's swing back to the convo that we started. But I use food delivery. So instead of going out and getting the food, I hopped on Uber Eats, paid for it and just waited for the driver to bring me the food. Actually, correction, I didn't wait. The point was so I didn't have to stop working. So I kept working until the driver arrived with my food, got the food. Then I would take a break, turn the TV on. I always made sure the TV stand and the TV was the first thing to be put together and, mounted. So I would have something in the background to listen to. When the food got there, I'd take like 30 minutes, go ahead and chow down. And once that was done, throw the remains away and then get back to work. So I only lost 30 minutes, which is 30 minutes that's necessary because, I have to eat. Versus if I went to the restaurant and picked it up, that could take an hour or two. So that way, technology was a pro. Another pro to the food delivery is the convenience. And if your energy levels are really waning that day and you kind of doubt if you'll be able to finish the task, but if you get this food delivered, that gives you the last push you need to go ahead and, knock it out. That's a pro too. But I think y'all are seeing where I'm going. But here's the con to that scenario and here's the opportunity cost. In that particular situation, since I needed to get that stuff done fast, it's acceptable. But let's say if I didn't need to get that stuff done fast, there's an opportunity cost from not getting my butt up and going to the restaurant and picking the food up. Here's the reason why. And this is going to reverberate through all of the things we're going to be talking about. Each time you use technology, oftentimes you're missing an opportunity to potentially connect with someone. And that shines here. So when I go to my favorite restaurant is the Vegan Food House. I'll use them as an example. I'm going there and I get in line and then I place my order and then I wait 15 to 20 minutes and then I pick the food up. Then I get back in my car and drive back to the rental unit. Now, during that whole exchange, I'm not the only one in the restaurant. Obviously, there are other people eating, there are other people ordering, there are other people that are waiting on their food. And the opportunity cost is if you're someone that's been applying the GRIP formula that we talked about in the social skills podcast, if you haven't seen that yet, highly recommend you check it out. It is an episode either 3 or 4. I'll have what the episode count on the screen, but definitely check that out. But if you have that under your belt, you know how to start conversations with strangers. You know how to build rapport with people. So each time you're in a public place, that's a chance you can meet someone. And this someone could be a customer. This could be a future friend that you just made. It could be someone that may be a potential partner in some kind of venture that'll come down the road, or maybe they have some that they can help you with immediately, or you can help them with in some form or fashion. And all that can take place because you went and picked up food at a restaurant. Well, if you use Uber Eats, that literally can't happen. So there's an opportunity cost there. So you see how with this food delivery on one side, it can really save you time because, well, it can just save time. And on the other side, it can cost you the potential of developing a relationship with someone. So that's something to keep in mind. So moving on to something that is pretty similar to what we talked about, but it's still some differences, is grocery delivery. How many people have used Instacart or Shipped or something like that? Well, we live in a post-pandemic, post-2020 world, so I'm gonna assume that everyone at some point used Instacart or Shipped, given the whole pandemic thing. If you haven't, it does have its uses, but similar situation applies here. So Instacart and Shipped, just for those of y'all that don't know, it's basically the same thing as food delivery, except for the driver is going to go, or in this case, a shopper is going to go and pick up and place let me rephrase that. They're going to go and do the shopping for you. So let's say you wanted some apples, romaine lettuce, celery, just almond milk, just a bunch of stuff, right? And you go on Instacart, place the order, they're going to do all that shopping for you, then deliver the groceries to your front door. That's the concept that we're talking about. Instacart does have competitors like Shipt, so that's why I'm just putting them all in the same category. So what is the pros and cons of this scenario? Very similar to food delivery. In this case, you may be on the hustle so hard that you may not have time to get groceries, or once again, the convenience factor comes into play. Or let's just be honest, if you're trying to eat on a more healthier side, it can get kind of expensive. So instead of buying, food while you're out, which if it's going to be healthy, they're going to make sure you pay your fair share. You want to try and do some more cooking, cook more, prepare food at home, maybe meal prep, but actually spending the time to get the groceries, that may be kind of taxing at this point. So you use an Instacart to bring the groceries to you so you can go ahead and do that meal prep and then get back on the hustle. Well, that whole scenario I talked about, that's the pro of it. Sometimes you're so busy that it works out that way. But here's the downside to that. Same thing applies as a food delivery. In fact, it applies a little more here because with the grocery delivery, a store is vastly going to be more populated than just a restaurant, potentially, unless you go with when the store is like almost about to close, like early in the morning. There's going to be people in the store with you. And to be honest, this is a scenario that's easier to use the grip formula in. I do it all the time. So I go in the store and I'm going to be hanging out mainly in the produce aisle to, get my fruits and vegetables. And I'm also going to be going to the aisle that has vegan food because I'm a vegan. Well, if anyone is hanging out in the vegan aisle, looking at, veggie meat or whatever, well, clearly they're either vegan or they have an interest in eating vegan food to eat less meat. So that's very easy to strike up a conversation. And I see something that someone is looking at, and I just walk up and say something like, "Are you thinking about getting that veggie meat?" "Oh yeah, I'm thinking about it. Well, you vegan by any chance?" "Oh yeah, I'm vegan," or "No, I'm not vegan, but I'm looking to eat less meat." I said, "Well, I can't speak for that one, but I've tried the one right next to it, and that one's pretty tasty. If you're gonna try veggie meat for the first time, someone who's been a vegan for 12 years, I recommend you give that a try." "Oh yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, no problem. I'm Elijah, by the way. What's your name?" "Oh, I'm such and such." Well, now I'm in a conversation. Real easy to work the grip formula in the store because the aisles that you hang out in and you get your food in, the people that are there are usually there for the same or similar reasons. So you see how this opportunity cost is playing this role here if you order this stuff on Instacart instead. In fact, the one tactic you could use if you're really trying to grow your network is don't do all your grocery shopping like in big intervals. Like some people, actually not that many people do this anymore, but I remember my parents back in the day, they would do all their grocery shopping every month. So there'd be enough groceries to last us the whole month. Then we run out and my dad and mom would go get more groceries at the beginning of next month. Some people do it weekly. So at the beginning of the week, they buy their groceries. If you want to really push it, you could actually do this daily or semi-daily. Like every 2 to 3 days, you go to the grocery store and get groceries, which means that you're going to be splitting up the type of groceries you get to make sure you're going as much as possible because these are more opportunities to meet people. Now, you do need to have more time on your hand to do this, but That means in this point in your hustler's journey, networking is more of a priority than getting out there and quote unquote hustling. But one thing that's important to know is networking and making money, there needs to be a natural, they need to affect each other. So that's part of the reason we're talking on this podcast. If you have a trader skill, it's necessary for you to network because that can turn into income down the line or maybe even immediately. Sometimes people may need your service immediately versus this other side hustle crap that people are talking about online. They're just talking about this online stuff like starting a blog or whatever. It doesn't require human interaction in the real world, which is why the money is limited. But we're not going to get into that. I'm going kind of on a tangent. The important thing though is that the networking component, if it's prioritized in your life right now, this is a great way to increase the amount of people that you're bumping into and that you're working the grip formula on. Let me specify that. So that's a little tip in there. But like we talked about before, the pro in this case is saving yourself some time and it's convenient. But the con is you're not going to meet as many people as you would have met if you took your butt to the store.
What's up, everyone? Hopefully you're enjoying the broadcast as it's airing right now. One of the most important things that you have to get down if you're going to be a full-time hustler or even be a side hustler is the ability to identify what types of income are involved in your industry and how to create the other types. And I'm not just talking about income as in how the IRS defines them, passive income, portfolio income, etc. On a fundamental level, there are 4 types of income, and these 4 types of income are based on how active that income is and how steady or unsteady that income is. If you want to know the sciences of how to identify the different types of income, how to build those sources of income, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of each type of income, you want to get chapter 5 of my Amazon best-selling book, The Anatomy of Financial Success. In it, I talk about something I created called the Money Magnifier that allows you the ability to identify what types of income there are out there, what income you should be working towards based on whatever goals or objectives you have for yourself or for your business. Go to www.fachapters.com and you can get chapter 5 of The Anatomy of Financial Success for free. With that being said, let's get back to the broadcast.
Moving on to the next thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about online leads in general. So online leads can range from Fiverr, Upwork, Freelancer.com, Facebook ads, oddly enough, social media, just anything that you do to generate leads for your freelancing services or businesses online. The pros of that obviously is a lead is a lead, so that's great. A lead can lead, no pun intended, to a sale, and sales equal income. So yeah, that's great. And most of the time online, when it comes to leads, they're passive leads a lot of times. So you put in the work to set up a Google ads campaign or Facebook ads campaign, Instagram ads, or even if we're going to talk about Fiverr and Upwork, like all this stuff, everything is done for you. So these leads are fairly passive. And if you don't consider that passive, get on the phone and start cold calling people, and you'll understand how passive this is compared to getting out there and generating leads offline. Okay. This stuff is fairly passive. Trust me. That's a big pro. And this frees your time up to do other things in your business or to generate more leads in a different way. That's great, right? Well, what's the downsides to that if you spend too much time on this? I'm not saying don't do online leads. I think there should be a healthy mix of online leads and offline leads. But if you're doing nothing but online leads, then you start to have an opportunity cost that we talked about, which stems back from overusing technology. So the cons to overusing online leads is, to be honest, when you do a comparison of online leads and offline leads, online leads are always going to be less quality because you haven't met the person in real life yet, or you may never meet the person in real life, versus someone that you met, or at the very least you're talking on the phone with someone. That is just a better quality lead. So what I mean by this is you take each category, so cold leads, warm leads, hot leads, okay? And in each category, online lead is going to fall short of an offline lead. So I don't want people saying, well, I got someone to opt into this like landing page and they've shown interest in my service, and that happened online. So they're a warm lead, but when I pick up the phone and give a stranger a call from a list that I bought, and it's a cold call, that's a cold lead. So the online lead obviously is better than the cold call lead. Well, yeah, but that's because they're in different temperature categories. Compare them in the same temperature category. Okay. Yeah. So there's that. And another thing is, if you do online leads too much, your social skills will start to deteriorate. So social skills are just like any kind of other kind of skill, or really any kind of muscle. If you don't use them, they will start to get weaker. And if you're doing this online stuff too much, you'll start to lose your social edge, your ability to just flow naturally to the next conversation, your ability to organically apply the grip formula. This stuff will start to decrease. Now, if you really put in your tenure and working these social skills, they're never going to fully go away. But you may find that they'll decrease like 20 to 30%. And that could be the difference between landing a high quality lead and or a high quality client rather, and them slipping through the cracks. So you always want to be doing some offline stuff at the very least, just to maintain your social skills that you put in so much work to develop or to acquire. So to summarize this particular category, online leads, if you abuse them, they have that opportunity cost that we talked about. It's kind of late in the show to be mentioning this. For the audio listeners, you don't really care, but video listeners may see that I'm looking down every now and then. Once again, I have some notes. Don't butcher me in the comments. Kind of late to be mentioning that in the show, but what are you going to do? Moving on to the next thing, I have phones in general. Not any one particular thing, just your phone in general. So this device has given us so much power in the time that we live in. People are literally, I say people like I'm not one of them. I'm one of them, but people are literally making a living just off their phones. A great example, my YouTube channels, they started, recording on my phone. Everything that I do on the computer, more or less, I can manage on my phone because there's an app for it. My phone houses all my contacts. I can keep going on and on. Y'all know the use of the cell phone nowadays. That's awesome. But if you're not careful, once again, this can kind of subtract because there's an opportunity cost. But let's talk about the pros. So the pros is everything I just mentioned. But everything I just mentioned, that's necessary and that's cool. But let's keep talking about the pros. One thing that's a big pro is social media. So most people, if you're on a computer, yeah, you'll get on your social media, but most social media interactions are going to be on the phone. And as we know, social media is a great way to generate leads for your business, to do some networking online. So these are big pros, right? Not taking away from that, but we got to acknowledge the fact that if the cell phone wasn't a thing, social media would just be very different, for better or for worse. But yeah, people wouldn't be on it as much. And if people aren't on social media as much, then it's just not going to be as effective. But since we have phones in our lives, it remains to be very effective. Let's go into the cons. Cons is if you're on your phone too much, not meeting people. And this is regardless of if you're going out or not. So it's one thing if you're sitting in your bedroom just playing, with your phone and not getting out. That's not even really what I'm really talking about, even though that can't apply. I'm saying, let's say that you did go out to eat and you followed the advice that what we talked about in the first instance, which is you went to a restaurant to pick up some food. I didn't mention this in the food delivery, but one thing I do want to slide in there. Some people will misinterpret what I'll say and they'll pick up their food to go. So they'll call the order in and then the food will be ready. So they walk in the restaurant, pick up the food and walk out. That doesn't count. You got to actually go in there and order the food there and actually wait the 15 to 20 minutes it takes to get your food. If you call the food if you call in your order ahead of time, that's still technology being used to your disadvantage in terms of an opportunity cost. Because this phone, if it wasn't available, you would just have to go and place the order. But swinging back to this concept that we're talking about, let's say you're waiting for your food, but you're on the phone. So you're looking down on Facebook, on Twitter, on X, on Instagram, or to be honest, let's say you're even checking things with your business, like you have a to-do list on your notes section, and that's another pro for a phone. It can be a great to-do list, but you're just kind of going through things like, I need this, I need to do this, I need to do this. Oh, I haven't done this. All right, let me move this to third priority to second priority because it's been sitting in that category for, a week or two now. You're going ahead and, managing things, right? And no one is going to really approach you or talk to you while you're staring down at your phone because it's considered rude. And do you talk to someone when they're on the phone or staring down at their phone? Most of the time, no. There might be some people, but most people, they're going to assume you're busy and they don't want to be rude. That means that you're not going to be approachable. You want to be approachable when you're out because you don't have to be the initiator of a conversation all the time. Sometimes someone may talk to you first. Why are you taking that off the table by making yourself unapproachable? That's the downside to using the phone too much. And a good, I want to say, rule of thumb is use the phone during times of privacy. Like you're in the car, right? When no one else is in the car, so you're not going to be losing anything, right? You're in your home, right? Well, you're not out and about, so there's no opportunity cost. But if you're out and about, yeah, there's going to be some instances where you might need to just do something on your phone. But my rule of thumb is if I'm on it for more than 3 minutes, I need to get off and actually be a part of the room I'm in. That doesn't mean I have to go and talk to everyone in there, but put the phone up and just kind of enjoy the scenery. But one thing I like to do is people watch. You'll learn a lot just by observing people wherever you're at. And this just makes you approachable. I shouldn't have to say this, but don't look pissed off. If you look pissed off for whatever reason, regardless of how you're feeling, that also makes you unapproachable. Doesn't mean you have to be smiling like overly happy or something. Just appear like a normal person and you'll be approachable. But minus that, that's my rule of thumb for the phone. I tend to try and stay off of it when I'm out and about because the phone, if you're on it too much, makes you unapproachable. The only caveat to that is if you're somewhere and you're the only one in there, sure, hop on your phone. But even then, the people that you're ordering from, you can talk to them. I've had great conversations with the staff at my favorite restaurant, the Vegan Food House. When I was their last customer, so I went in there and I try to avoid this because I don't want to be that person 2 minutes before they close, like, hey, can I grab something real quick? But it'll usually be like 20 or 30 minutes before they close. And I might be like their last customer. So there's no other customers in there. I've had great conversations with the staff. So even that can still be turned to be to your advantage. But with that being said, I think I've given plenty of examples to just kind of show that technology has an advantage, obviously, but it has a disadvantage if you abuse it too much. So make sure that it runs through the filter of, hey, is there an opportunity cost from abusing this feature too much, whatever it be from a technology perspective? If the answer is no, keep using it and use it to its fullest extent. If the answer is yes, kind of moderate how much you're using this because you don't want it to impair your opportunities when it comes to capitalizing on them. I think this show is necessary to do before some of the other shows we have planned because the next two shows, we are going to be talking about technology a lot. So I think this is great to hear first so it can be managed properly. But that does it for this episode of Side Hustler Society podcast. I did say 5, but really, we're going to keep it at 4 because the fifth one more ties into one of them I already went through. So we're going to keep it at 4. And this is just meant to give examples of the concept that I'm talking about. I think these 4 tips really did give that concept its due time. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new and give us a like for the YouTube algorithm on YouTube. That's greatly appreciated. If you're watching us on Spotify or listening to us on Apple, if you could leave us a rating, that'd be greatly appreciated. It helps us with those algorithms as well. I will catch you in the next episode of the Side Hustler Society podcast. Like always, be safe and be profitable, everyone.
This episode may be over, but your hustling journey has just started. Visit thesidehustlersociety.com to access all links and resources mentioned in the show that will help you on your hustler's journey.
Okay, everyone. So we just finished the podcast segment of this Money Monday live stream, where we talked about essentially how technology, if you're not careful, can actually start inhibiting your ability to grow your business if you really need to get more leads for your business. Because oftentimes when we use technology, that comes at an opportunity cost sometimes, because we're not going out meeting people, and you meet people and you start making connections, you start networking, and good things happen business wise. If that's not happening, you can actually be setting yourself back without even knowing it. So it's just good to have a balance between the two. But now that we finished the podcast segment, we can go ahead and move on to the other segments, which we have some interesting things to talk about. So we're going to talk about YouTube's new monetization policy that's going into effect tomorrow, July 15th, and what that means for creators. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I have an opinion on that, but we're going to get to it. And then I'm going to be reacting. I'm not leaving y'all hanging as far as reacting content goes, but Trump is talking about making arrangements for massive layoffs to happen to federal workers. And we're going to be commenting on what that could potentially mean for the Side Hustler Society. I don't mean necessarily like the channel. I mean the society of people who do something for side hustles. Essentially, if you're watching me, you probably fit in one of four categories. You're an aspiring content creator, meaning you want to make money from YouTube or online in some form or fashion. You want to make money using apps. You're a freelancer or a one-person business, or you want to know more about being a real estate investor or an Airbnb host. These layoffs can actually affect all those industries in different ways, and we're going to be talking about that. So let's start off by moving on to the first segment. So as y'all know, I am what people would call a YouTuber, if you will, and I keep up with YouTube news to a certain degree. And I started seeing people cover this topic, and they were just kind of freaking out about like what it could mean. But on July 15th, YouTube is making a change to the partner program, a brief, small little change. And we're going to cover exactly what they're talking about in this stream. But a lot of people are concerned in regards to reaction content. I have a story about reaction content, actually. But before I get into that, I'm going to share my screen because we're going to be talking about the YouTube policy. I'm going to actually pull up the policy changes as they posted on their website. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into that. But you want to hit a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. That's very much appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And if you're interested in going full-time, whether it is freelancing, you're a YouTuber, or you're in the Airbnb or real estate game, you want to consider joining the Self-Made Business Academy. We'll be mentored by yours truly, and you'll gain access to all the products, digital products, in Financial Anatomy and the Side Hustle Society. The link is in the description. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. The thing about reaction content, I've actually just recently branched off into doing reaction content. So I was thinking maybe this would affect me, but I've heard people like Nick Nimmons and Roberto Blake kind of talk about this, like it's not going to really change that much. And based on what I'm reading, yes, it's not. In fact, I think it can actually benefit YouTubers who are doing this stuff the right way and cut down on a lot of the riffraff. But let's go ahead and get into what YouTube is saying. So this is a summarized version. I think the original version they took down, but I do have a screenshot on my phone. I just can't show it on the screen. Let's go ahead and read what they have. Updates to the only thing we're talking about is the bottom part. The top part, it doesn't really matter here. So updates to YouTube Partner Program, monetization policy. In order to monetize as part of the YouTube Partner Program, YouTube has always required creators to upload original and authentic content. I had to check something on the mic. Okay. On July 15, 2025, YouTube is updating our policies or our guidelines to better identify mass-produced and repetitious content. This update better reflects what inauthentic content looks like today. Okay, so an example pops in my head when I hear this. Let's say someone has done a public speaking gig and they have their speaker reel and they have a YouTube channel. So they've uploaded that speaking gig to their YouTube channel. It's like an hour, then breaking down, whatever. Someone or multiple people get a hold of that speaking gig content or footage and they upload it on their channels. What this new policy change would do is essentially they're free to upload that content from the guy as long as they do have permission. He can still get it taken down, but assuming he doesn't care, they could upload that content, but only he would actually be making money in the form of YouTube Partner Program or the Google AdSense, and the others won't, because they're not commenting on the speaking reel. They're not like they're not transforming it in any way to make it fair use or original content. I don't have any problem with that, to be honest. But let's go ahead and read the original post, which is the screenshots that I took. So, key changes: mass-produced content, videos created in bulk with minimal human input, such as automated presentations with synchronized voices and no personalized narrative, will face monetization restrictions. Translation: people will just drumming a bunch of stuff together with AI may not be qualified for YouTube monetization as far as that video goes. Well, shoot, I got no problem with that. Not something I do. I think it would be thinning the herd in terms of the money that's available for creators to split in the first place. In fact, one thing I'm kind of curious about on July 15th, what these changes going to affect, I don't think it'll impact like a bunch of people, but are we going to see RPMs and CPMs kind of go up? Just for reference, RPM is how much a creator makes per 1,000 views. So based on the niche you're in, will determine what RPM you have. But just for example's sake, let's just say you have an RPM of $10. Oh, after this, will the RPM go up to like $11.50 or $12 per video? Because there's less videos that those ads are getting served to? I don't think so, but that's just kind of where my mind goes. Let's keep reading. Repetitious content, videos that reuse formats, scripts, or styles without offering distinctive value, such as reaction mashups or compilation with minimum editing, will be affected. So my mind goes to this. Let's say I have a video I'll be reacting to later in this segment. Well, not in this segment, but in the live stream. But let's just say someone wants to take that portion of my live stream that I'm reacting to something, and then they take like the reactions of like 4 other people and combine them to one big video and just say like everyone's reaction towards whatever. That video wouldn't qualify for monetization because they're not doing anything different with that content. It's really no different from watching me do it on my stream and each of the other creators on their own individual streams. We would all be getting paid, but the person that's curating all of that, unless they're stopping and giving commentary to our reactions, reacting to content, it's not original content, so they won't be getting paid. I don't see a problem with that. It's just getting paid to be lazy. That's what it comes off to me. And YouTube is getting ahead of the curve by really, how can I put this? They're de-incentivizing this behavior, because it can get way out of hand and become a bigger problem for really everyone. Content using third-party material, content borrowed from other sources must be significantly altered to be considered original. Okay, so that means that reaction content that I just mentioned is actually saved, not the compilation video, but as far as me and the other creators in the example, like when y'all hear me react to something, in fact, I'm actually a good example of how to do this right. You'll hear me, I'll play a clip for like maybe 45 seconds, and then I'll go on a 5 and sometimes 7-minute rant or rumble about this, and then we'll get back to the video and play another like 90 seconds. Then I hear something I gotta spit game to, so I'll pause it. Boom, 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 boom. I'm transforming the content and making it original, and I'm giving commentary. That's essentially what they're saying. So if you're going to be reacting to content, actually react to content. There's a bunch of people that they don't actually react to content. They'll sit here and let the whole video play and then say like, oh, I thought that was pretty good, or oh, that sucked, or that stuff is trash, for like 15 seconds at the end, and then upload that stuff and they're getting paid. It looks like you might have to actually try harder and be a genuine reactor creator to get paid now. Repetitious content serving a purpose. Repetitious content must serve a purpose beyond simply gaining views, such as being entertaining or educational, to qualify for monetization. Like I said, in my case, it would be educational. But if you're going to be reacting content,
You need to be tearing it down and being a jokester and being funny with it or being entertaining, or you need to be giving constructive criticism or educating your audience for it to qualify for monetization. Now, one thing I won't say concerned about, but this could be annoying. On July 15th, if a video is flagged for a review, like, hey, we need to just verify that this fits the policy to be monetized, what does that process look like and how long does it take? Because I wouldn't want a video to be uploaded and then it's going to take like 24 hours before it's reviewed and like, okay, you're good, so we go ahead and monetize. I could work around that, but I would prefer not to. So I'm a little concerned about that aspect, but we won't know how that plays out until July 15th rolls around, which is not that far away. All right, so people were freaking out about this, so YouTube actually did respond. So we're going to pull up the response real quick. Response to creator questions about YouTube Partner Program policies, July 2025. Oh, let's make that bigger. Yeah, there we go. Okay. What's changing on July 15th? To be clear, we're not introducing a new YouTube policy. This is a minor update to our long-standing repetitious content guideline. So they're basically saying that this has been a part of the policy all along. It just seems like they're getting aggressive towards enforcing it. We regularly update and evolve our policies based on the content on YouTube, and this update is to clarify this policy includes content that is mass-produced or repetitious, which content viewers often consider spam. Let's go ahead and skip to they're addressing people's direct concerns over here. Does this relate to reused content? There are no changes to our reused content policies, which guide commentary, clips, compilation, and reaction content. See, people were specifically concerned about those outlets of making content. This content can continue to monetize if you've added significant original commentary, modifications, or educational or entertainment value to the original video. Our monetization policies with more examples are shared in our help center. We're not going to click on that because actually I already gave a few examples. But I will link this article below in the description so you can check that help center out if you still feel a little anxious. Will using AI in my content be a violation of inauthentic content? We welcome creators using AI tools to enhance their storytelling, and channels that use AI in their content remain eligible to monetize. All channels must follow our monetization policies, and creators are required to disclose when their realistic content is altered or synthetic. More info on how to disclose altered or synthetic content in our help center. Can you give a few examples of what's considered mass-produced content? Okay. A few examples of mass-produced content may include a channel that uploads narrated stories with only superficial differences between them. A channel that uploads slideshows that all have the same narration. This list is not exhaustive, so be sure to continue to review your content against our monetization policies. Okay, so that it comes from YouTube themselves because they saw I won't say backlash, but just concerns that people had. So I personally don't see this as a bad thing. I know people will ask in my opinion because I am a quote-unquote YouTuber. I see it as a good thing. Maybe RPMs will go up. But at the very least, it'll decentivize this laziness among creators. And it'll get people to actually put some effort into their content because there are plenty of reaction channels that aren't really reaction channels. They're re-upload channels. Like 20 seconds of commentary towards the end doesn't qualify as a reaction content in my book. That's just me personally. But that does it for this section. Like the video, much appreciated. Subscribe if you're new. And of course, check out the Self-Made Business Academy. Links will be in the description. Let's go ahead and move on to the next segment. All right. So we have our next segment pulled up, and this is Supreme Court paves way for mass Trump layoffs of federal workers. Yeah, so y'all thought I was going to be leaving y'all hanging with reaction content. No, we got something here. Now, I generally stay out of politics, but I'm reacting to this for a few different reasons, and I'm going to be reacting to it in not just the stereotypical way that a lot of people react to, just giving casual commentary. I'm going to be reacting to this and giving advice based on what is this going to have, what's the effect this is going to have on people who are doing some kind of side hustle or full-time in terms of it saturating the market or taking away opportunities. So yes, these layoffs could be coming, but what is that going to do and how's that going to affect you? I don't really care about the politics of it, the MAGA stuff, the Democrats. We're not going to talk about that because I don't really want to talk politics on this channel, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that this is going to affect y'all, because if a bunch of people start hitting the streets that are laid off, it will affect, I'll say, 4 categories. If you're watching the Side Hustler Society, you're mainly probably watching for one of 4 reasons. You want to make some extra money or full-time via some kind of app. You want to get involved with the Airbnb or real estate game. You want to build a one-person business or a freelancer business, or you're an aspiring content creator and you would like to be a YouTuber or make money online via social media in some form or fashion, either now, in the future, as a form of passive or side hustle income, if you will, or maybe even full-time. This can affect all 4. So we're going to hear what the news, CBS News that is, has to say, and this will be linked in the description. Of course, don't forget to like the video on your way in. Really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're new, and be sure to check out the Self-Made Business Academy if you're looking at doing anything that I just mentioned as far as those 4 categories full-time. Let's go ahead and dive into it.
The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to move forward with its mass layoffs of federal workers. The justices today lifted a lower court order that had blocked layoffs at dozens of agencies. The Trump administration has been working to reorganize and downsize the federal government under the White House Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson joins us now. Jessica, always very good to see you. Remind us a little bit about the facts of this case and how it ended up before the Supreme Court here.
So it ended up before the Supreme Court, as we're talking about increasingly frequently, is that there was an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court. So what happened? As you said, President Trump issued an executive order saying, essentially, we're going to drastically reduce the number of federal workers. And then there was another memo that was issued about exactly how to do that. Labor groups and others sued and said, Mr. President, you don't have the power. You actually have to work with Congress if you want to dramatically reorganize the executive branch this way.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to have to pause it, even though I'm going to give most of my commentary after the video because of what I said. Got to pause it for fair use purposes, but I do want to chime in here real quick. They've been given the people who could be potentially getting laid off, federal workers, they've been given a heads up by Trump for quite some time. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be fighting to keep their jobs. By all means, they should. But I would just hope they have some kind of backup plan in case this actually happens. I have no way of knowing if they do or don't. I just hope they do, because I would just sleep better at night if that was me.
And there was an initial...
And by backup plan, I mean, i.e., at least have a side hustle.
Win by those challenging the president's executive order in the trial court at the district court. The district court judge said, at least for now, to the challengers, you're right, Mr. President, you cannot implement these plans. Let's put these plans on hold. The Trump administration then appealed up to the Ninth Circuit, that's the Intermediate Court of Appeals, and said, let us move forward. The Ninth Circuit, in a divided decision, said no. The Trump administration, in an emergency appeal, then went up to the Supreme Court. That's the ruling that we're talking about today. And the Supreme Court essentially lifted the lower court's pause, meaning that the restructuring can move forward while this case plays out.
So what does that mean exactly about what kind of federal workers will...
So that means that before this case even reaches its conclusion, layoffs can start happening. Yikes.
Be affected by this? And do we have a sense of how soon that would happen?
So we're talking about federal workers from 12 different agencies. So we're talking about potentially, my understanding is not just tens of thousands of workers, but actually up to 100,000 different workers. This would be a significant restructuring of the executive branch. And again, the underlying question is whether or not the president has the power to do that without working with Congress. The president tried to do this during the first administration by working with Congress. Congress wasn't willing to do that, and therefore now the president is trying to do this by himself. How quickly could this happen? I would say that we're potentially talking about days or weeks to see some significant changes in the executive branch.
That is not much time at all. Jessica, did the justices give any kind of indication of why they went the way they did?
No, as is typical for an order like this, when the justices are responding to an emergency appeal. There wasn't a vote count. There wasn't an opinion. There was a dissent from Justice Jackson, but this is known as the shadow docket or the emergency docket. When it comes to cases that are on the main docket, that's when we get those lengthy opinions that we get to talk about with the concurrences and the dissent. This was just a quick order of, we're lifting that stay, go ahead, and the Trump administration can move forward with their plans again while the case plays out.
And Jessica, I know that you had mentioned that action could be taken on this really in just a matter of days or weeks. Is there anything else that we should be looking out for when it comes to the legality of this case?
So this is a big test for how much the president can do on his own. We should be clear that in this case, we are talking about the president restructuring the executive branch. And historically, presidents have had significant power because they are the chief executive over the executive branch. But the question is whether or not the restructuring is so significant, is so vast, that this is an area where you would need the cooperation of both political branches. So this really, as I said, is a test of how much can the president do on his own when it comes to the executive branch.
Just
Okay, that's a good place to stop it. We only have 6 seconds left anyway. So if y'all want to check this video out, the link will be in the description. So let's go ahead and get into a what-if scenario, or it kind of sounds inevitable, but let's go ahead and say that these layoffs are going to happen, which it looks like they probably will in some form. The magnitude of it, we don't know. But when these layoffs happen, how are they going to affect those 4 areas that y'all are basically coming to me for advice for in terms of like side hustles? So we're going to start with the one that's going to be the least affected, and we'll end with the one that's probably going to be the most affected. Least affected would be the content creator or the YouTuber. So layoffs happen. All these federal workers are quote unquote on the streets, jobless. Will a lot of them starting YouTube channels or trying to be a content creator? I don't necessarily see it because I just don't really see it. There's no like direct correlation of seeing like a bunch of federal workers necessarily going into content creation. And let's say if all of them did, it wouldn't really make an impact on you pursuing a income stream as a YouTuber or as an online business or as a content creator. Wouldn't really impact you. So that's the category that's going to be the least affected. Moving on from that, the next one would be the real estate / Airbnb. A bunch of federal workers getting laid off. How would that affect the real estate industry? Generally speaking, it won't affect it that much because if they're already involved in real estate, which I actually could believe a number of federal workers would be involved in real estate, they probably already are. They already probably have a side hustle or some rental properties on the side while they're at their federal job. And if they get laid off, that might become their full-time thing. They might start acquiring more properties, might start renting more properties out, maybe in order to make up for that cash flow, they'll start doing rental arbitrage more and hunting for those type of deals. So you might see a slight increase in the market in that regards, but that will be very locally based. It wouldn't be something on a national level. Moving on from that, so those 2 categories are more or less kind of safe. These next 2 will be affected more. This category is going to be the freelancer or the one-person business. Now, these federal workers, if a number of them are tradesmen or tradeswomen, then they may just decide, hey, it's time to go ahead and go into this thing full time, whether it be a graphic design, video editing, like these different freelancing services. If they have those skill sets, they could hit the market. So that means they could get on these apps or websites like Fiverr and Upwork and start attempting to offer their services. And it would further saturate the market. Now, I've told y'all several times, don't rely on those platforms, because as far as I'm concerned, they're already saturated, so saturated, and not necessarily with quality either. And a lot of cheap customers are looking to get stuff for cheap on those platforms. So I just say never rely on them. But if you're following the advice on this channel, which I highly advise that you set your own means of getting leads. In fact, the whole theme of this season of the Side Hustle Society podcast is lead generation, both online and offline. Regardless of how many federal workers hit the streets with a particular trade or skill, it won't make that much of an impact. And that's assuming they have a trade or skill to start with. These are people that are the definition of just a standard employee most of the time. I do see a lot of them having a real estate portfolio, but as far as a trade or skill that you can bring to the marketplace for money, it's not going to affect that much. But I'm going to tell you this, the category that's going to be the most affected about this is people on the apps, the gig apps, like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Grubhub, that stuff. Now, why do I say that confidently so? Because it happened the first time Trump did something like this. Y'all remember in his first term when Trump shut down the government for like 3 weeks? The demand plummeted. I mean, we're talking about like a 60% reduction in the amount of requests that I saw coming in on a regular basis during the peak times. So whatever the rideshare times are, there just wouldn't be hardly any activity. And the pretty high activity times for food delivery, like lunchtime between 11 and 2, or dinner time between 5 and 9 p.m., like they just were not busy. You really had to hunt to find areas of activity. And it got so bad that I was making content at the time, and I made a video on why is it so slow. And there are various reasons why it was slow, because it was doing the normal yearly slowdown in January, but the government being shut down added on top of that. Now, you might be wondering why. Does that mean like the federal workers aren't ordering Uber Eats? They're trying to save on a budget or something? That's partially true, but the bigger one is, where do you think they're going to go the moment they don't have any income? They got on these apps. These cats got on Uber and DoorDash, so the driver supply was overinflated, and there wasn't enough orders to go out to accommodate everyone. You think if these layoffs happen, that's not going to happen again? In fact, last time it was only temporary. Now, at the time, we didn't know how long the government was going to be shut down. It could have been like longer, but Trump caved in after about 3 weeks, so everyone went back to work after that. But at least they knew they would be going back. They didn't know when, but they knew they were going back. Getting laid off means, hey, we're letting you go for this reason, and you're not coming back. So you best believe their first instinct, especially if they don't have a trader skill like we covered, is going to be getting on these apps, and the same thing is going to happen again. So if you're on these apps and you're doing it full time, or even if you're doing it part time, I would be really trying to develop that trader skill, which I sound like a broken record, and move into the freelancer category, because the moment they get on these apps, it's going to be oversaturated, and however much money you are making per day, you're going to have to increase the amount of hours to hit that amount, or you might just have to accept the less money, because it won't matter how many hours you're online. There's just too many drivers, and this goes for both rideshare and food delivery. So get ahead of the curve and start looking for alternative ways of making money, because this layoff, I see it being more likely to happen than not, because in general, and I'm not even talking about Trump, I'm just talking about government jobs in general. We've had way too many government jobs than necessary, and we have never really, at least in the past few years, in my opinion, we haven't really needed those jobs. A lot of these employees are just kind of sitting on their jobs doing like menial, like regular, like tasks that eventually will be outsourced to AI. But aside from that, it's just too many jobs. Even the legitimate jobs have too many people that are doing them. So it's not enough work to go around. So they're usually just kind of hanging around, just kind of kicking it. Not like literally, but there's not enough work to go around to justify so many jobs. So this was going to have to happen eventually. Trump, being the person he is just accelerating the process. So we need to make sure that we're prepared. In particular, people who are on the apps. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take this off. And that does it for this episode of the Side Hustler Society Money Monday, if you will. Sorry, y'all. Something's going on with the behind the scenes. I don't know what's going on there. I'm trying to change something, but whatever, it doesn't want to act right. But if y'all have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you're new and hit that thumbs up button so you can help out with the YouTube algorithm. That's greatly appreciated. And I will see y'all on the next Money Monday live stream. Be safe and be profitable, everyone.